All right. Hello, good evening, everybody. Let's get this workshop started. So, hello and welcome everyone to the email etiquette workshop. And I hope you all are having a wonderful night. So, let's get started. Hi, my name is Tina Nguyen, and I'll be your host for tonight's workshop. A little bit about me. I'm a third-year kinesiology student here at Ontario Tech University, and this workshop is brought to you by Skill Series. Our goal is to inspire and educate students in a wide range of topics with focus on life skills accomplished by the use of correct resources and individuals. In the past, we have hosted several workshops with the main focus on giving back to the community by providing skills and learning opportunities that are essential in life, but are not really taught in school. And if you guys have any questions at all, please note them down and I will provide my email at the end of the presentation and we can get in touch. So, other than that, let's dive into it. So, what is email etiquette? Well, it's also known as netiquette, which is a combination of the words net and etiquette. And this refers to using courtesy and politeness when communicating with others online. And so think of it as, a code of conduct for email communications. Essentially, email etiquette provides the principles of behavior that individuals use when writing and answering emails. And, one might ask, why is email etiquette so important? Well, it is because emails are considered a form of communication, So, just as you follow, face-to-face communication norms in a normal conversation in person, you should also do the same in written communication online. And you want to have your message to come across as positive and have it, understood in a clear and concise manner. So, due to the reason that written words can be easily misinterpreted, we essentially created email etiquette to prevent that. So, what are the basic components of an email? Let's start with that. So, to put together a very well-written email message, we are going to need to understand its components first. So, I'm sure we've all written an email before. Maybe, we were in elementary, that was our first email, or maybe it was middle school or high school, or, we started writing our proper email in university or college. Either way, let's dive into the components. So the first one you see here is the to. This is where you type in the email address of the individual that the message is intended for. And the next one is CC. As you can see right beside the to, is CC and BCC. So CC stands for carbon copy. So you might want to add individuals who need a copy of the email. So the original receiver of the email will see this person added. So for example, if I CC Bob and Jake on this email, Bob and Jake will both know that that the other received the email. So blind carbon copy, also known as BCC, unlike the CC carbon copy, no one but the sender can see the list of BCC recipients. So the blind literally makes you kind of virtually blind to the email. So that means that the original receiver does not know that anyone else is getting a copy. So for example, if I send Bob an email and BCC Jake a copy, so I send a blind carbon copy to Jake, Bob won't know that I sent Jake another copy of the email that I sent to Bob. So next we have the subject. So that is where you input a clear subject line. To basically round it up, you have to keep it short and simple but not too vague. For example, if you're emailing your professor, you may want to include your class CRN, what the email is specifically regarding in the subject. And lastly, we have the body of the email. So that's your main message. So generally, you'll write this just like a normal letter with a greeting, with composed with one or more paragraphs and closing it with your name. So we'll go into depth with this topic later in the workshop, but now that we understand the basic components of an email, we'll move on to the tone. So why is the tone so important in emails? Well, you have to account for your tone because the reader can't really see your face or hear the tone of your voice. So choose your words carefully and wisely and thoughtfully as well. So think about how your words will come across in cyberspace. And the golden rule is to treat those how you want it to be treated. With that being said, the wrong tone can actually get you in a little bit of trouble. So for example, we're writing business emails in a hurry. We often kind of forget to check our tone. So even though you may be a polite person, your email can come across as negative or rude. So here are some tips to help you set the tone in your emails. So number 1 is to read your email out loud and see how it sounds. Number 2 is if your email is an important one, you can email it to yourself and reread it or even print it out if you want to. And another tip is to enter the recipient's email last to prevent yourself from sending the email too soon in a rush. And since emails are conversational than many other types of writing, we make a greater use of the personal pronouns such as I, me, my, we, you, and your. And also be aware of slang because emojis and like text language like ain't or gonna could be misinterpreted as unprofessional. So be positive and don't forget to use please and thank you as well. Alright, so in terms of format, being mindful of formatting and using proper structure and layout could actually help you improve your professionalism in terms of your email. So first and foremost, make sure that you include a greeting like you would in a letter. Then for the actual message part, try to keep the email brief and use complete sentences. Double check for spelling, grammar, and punctuation, and use a professional font, such as Times New Roman, Arial. And make sure that you have short paragraphs with spaces in between. And numbers or tick marks or bullet points if you're making any points. And also watch out for run-on sentences and long emails. Emails are meant to be concise and to the point and shouldn't be an essay, essentially. Next, so you should leave out the abbreviations and like emojis and exclamation marks if they're not needed. So the receiver may not understand or be aware of the meanings behind these two things. So when in doubt, it's best to kind of leave it out. And just make sure at the end of the email, provide a proper salutation that matches your message of the email, like a thank you or sincerely. So as you can see in this example on your right, you can add your recipients on the top, and then your subject line is nice and simple. So meeting with, Joe, and then your salutation could be hello, Joe, comma, and there we go. And you can see that they also include a salutation at the end, regards, comma, and then you can put your name. So moving on to content. So with tone and formatting of the email in mind, let's jump into the content. Always read and reread your emails before sending it. Double check for spelling, grammar, proper titles, and so on. Consider your content and if a follow-up is needed. So allow your proper amount of response time as well. So this applies to both the sender and the receiver. So the rule of thumb is 24 hours. So if you don't get a response back after that, you can follow up with another email. And lastly, double check your attachments. This is very important. I've sent so many emails out and forgot to attach the PDF with them. So always reference your attachment in the body of the email and do not attach files that are very large and consider maybe sending it as a PDF. All right, so here is an example. So can you guys spot the mistakes of this particular email? I'll give you guys a few seconds. All right. So on the left here is the example to what not to do. And on the right is what is the correct way of sending an email. So on the left, we notice that the email address is good, but it could further be simplified by taking out the second underscore and maybe adding a period instead. So instead of hank_hill_16@gmail.com, it would be hank_hill_16@gmail.com. So that's way easier to type and way easier to remember. And second, the subject line is very vague. So rather, to make it more specific, it could be financial paperwork due. Be more specific, like what kind of paperwork is due. All right. Third, the salutation and greeting is very informal and can be replaced with hello or hi and followed by the recipient's first name. Fourth, the message needs to be edited. So in terms of grammar, punctuation, and like capitalization, especially for the body message, it could go along the lines of, instead of saying, please turn in your paperwork by this afternoon. So they misspelled paperwork. They used the slang your. So instead you would put on the right side here, would you please turn in your paperwork by 2 p.m. this afternoon? Thank you. Next, the salutation at the end of the email, which is bye, can be replaced by kind regards. Lastly, this email altogether is lacking, again, any proofreading, like the spacing and the capitalization. Next, so we have the 5 rules to curate the best email possible. So number 1 is to use a professional email address. You should always have an email address that conveys your name, so the recipient knows exactly who is sending the email. So never use email addresses that are not appropriate for use in the workplace, such as, omg123@gmail.com and things like that. Number 2, include a clear and direct subject line. So examples of a good subject line includes, meeting date changed, quick question about your presentation, suggestions for the proposal. Because people often decide whether to open an email based on the subject line, it's best to choose one that lets the reader know that you are addressing their concerns or business issues. And number 3, use professional salutations like Dear Taylor, Dear Miss Brown, to whom it may concern, Dear Sir or Madam, hello or hi. Or in a group setting, you may want to use Dear or Hi all. So just to reiterate, if you know the person well, you can use their first name only. So for example, Dear Taylor. Secondly, for a potential employer or supervisor, always use Dear Miss or Mr. Third, you can use to whom it may concern in a business correspondence. And when you don't have a name to use, you can use Dear Sir or Madam. And next, you can use hello or hi in a situation where, it's casual correspondences. And that basically wraps that up. And number 4 is to include a signature. So provide your full name, title, and company name, and as well as your contact information, including a phone number as well. So the recipient may also want to communicate by any other means than email. And they have that option if you put in your signature at the end of the email right there. All right. So number 5, our last rule. I cannot reiterate this enough because I want to make sure that everyone proofreads their email. Because number 1, first of all, they'll make you look so professional, and you should look out for things like grammar, spelling, and tone at the very least. So make sure you proofread slowly and read it line by line to catch any spelling, grammar, punctuation errors, and make sure that if you attach any hyperlinks that it works as well. And read and reread your emails a few times, just to be sure, and preferably out loud before setting it off. All right, so to wrap it up, I have an example to show you guys of what to do and what to kind of not to do when sending an email. So in this scenario, the student is sending an email to their prof. All right, let's read it. So the subject line is literally just assignment, and that is very, very vague. And there's no class C or N, that is missing, and it's not even capitalized. And now let's look at the body of the email. It's lacking a lot, actually. There's a lot of space, and there isn't a proper salutation, like, dear professor, or dear Dr., Jones, comma. So let's read what it actually says. So I can't find the assignment you gave in class. Can you send me a copy of that? All right, so first off, they didn't capitalize the sentence, and they also used the letter U instead of like YOU. And, there's improper punctuation right there as well. So with the question mark and exclamation mark. So this is what you shouldn't do when sending out an email. So let's move on to what we should do. So on the other hand, this is a more of an improvement right here. So as you can tell, this email has been well written because it follows all the email etiquette rules. So let's check it out. So for the subject line, it says Jane Lee, assignment number 5 for the class C or N, from which section, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And right here, so Dear Professor Doe, my name is Jane Lee, and I am in your MW Mat 117, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. class. I am emailing in regards to assignment number 5. I have a couple of questions about some of the topics. May I come by during your office hours at 10 a.m. tomorrow to discuss these questions? If another time would be better for you, please let me know and I will reschedule. Thank you in advance for your help. Sincerely, Jane Lee. So just take a few seconds and kind of just reflect on, which of the 5 rules did they use of email etiquette. And I'll give you guys a few seconds. All right, so let's start off with the subject line again. So it's very clear and concise, and it goes straight to the point. And I know a lot of professors actually prefer this type of format for subject lines. So that's definitely a +1. And so let's move on to the body of it. So Dear Professor Doe. So they basically provide a very clear professional salutation by using dear and professor and just addressing the professor. And that's very nice. And it's also, you could tell that it's a very well thought out message due to, just the person introducing themselves and what class they're in. And, they mentioned that they're emailing in regards to the assignment and that they have a few questions, and it's pretty straightforward. I think the only thing that I would change about this is that the spacing. I would just space it out a little more and just make it not look like a paragraph, because it does look like a little paragraph. But yeah, so it's really nice. They use please, they use the word thank you in advance for your help, and that's very key, because if you want someone to kind of do something for you, you use the word please and thank you. And at the end, then use the word sincerely, which is a good salutation to end off the message. So you can use sincerely, best regards, kind regards, or even cheers, or, thanks. And they signed off with their name, their first name and last name. And that concludes my email etiquette workshop. And I thank you guys for joining me this evening. And if you guys have any questions, concerns, or inquiries regarding this workshop, you could find me at tina.nguyen1@ontariotechu.net. And I hope you guys have a good night. All right, cheers.